I commend these bills to the House.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. The Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Speaker, I apologise. Mr Speaker, the Labour Party is supporting these bills, and I think we'll be supporting them with a lot more enthusiasm than the Minister who has just spoken in favour of them. Because some of us have thought about this issue before we came to the House, and I've got a bit of advice from the Minister, who's a relatively new Minister, and that is it always pays to look beyond page 1 when you're handed someone else's speech, and that way you can work out if there are any words you don't know or if anything's not clear. Because, Mr Speaker, what was absolutely clear was that the Honourable Minister, in delivering that speech, had not looked past page 1 before he started delivering it. Well, no, I'm being generous to him. If the Minister had looked beyond page 1 and delivered the speech like that, it would be very serious. Well, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, unlike the member opposite, I haven't had as much to drink over dinner time. As she has, Mr Speaker. Well, if it turned me into a person like Maggie Barry drinking, I would certainly not take it up. I would certainly not take it up, because she is the evidence of the problem. She is the evidence of the problem when that sort of thing occurs. Mr Speaker, thank you very much. Mr Speaker, the first bill, these bills really come at the same issue from different perspectives. The Electronic Identity Verification Bill is an opt-in scheme whereby people can get into the system, get in there once and stay in there, and give permission for different agencies to use the authentication system in order to know who the agencies are dealing with. Mr Speaker, I think that over a period of time, more and more people will want to get involved this way, although I must say it is a matter of trust as far as government agencies are concerned, and we've had quite a few problems with trust of government and government agencies in this area. One just says ACC and Judith Collins. We say WINS and Paula Bennett. We say NovaPay and NovaPay and NovaPay and Paula Bennett and Judith Collins. And, Mr Speaker, what we have is breach after breach after breach after breach of privacy on the part of ministers and of government departments. And I say that those people are going to have to clean up their act, and they're going to have to clean up their agencies, or there will not be a chance, Mr Speaker, of people willingly going into the system, because they know that ministers will spray their private details around into the public, in a way which is just not acceptable. Mr Speaker, I agree with the comments which I presume were drafted for officials for Chris Tremaine, the Minister in charge of the bill, around the work of the Select Committee. And I want to acknowledge both Mr Bakshi and Mr Akinval for the work that they did do. But I think what people will generally agree is that in the Select Committee on these bills, it didn't really matter which party you're coming from. We had different perspectives on some of the details and different angles on occasions, and I do want to acknowledge the work that Gareth Hughes did. He did a good job in this particular area, and we mainly came to agreement. And I also want to sort of acknowledge the government's flexibility in making changes to make the legislation work more carefully when evidence was produced in the Select Committee, and as far as the punishment regimes, their willingness to shift from something which was for multi-fraud on the part of a company, a bit of a slap with a wet bus ticket, to something which might at least be a ruler across the hand, Mr Speaker, rather than a wet bus ticket. So there has been some change in this particular area. Mr Speaker, there have been some powers granted to the Privacy Commissioner, who will be able to proactively require reports about the operation of the service. Although I must say, Mr Speaker, having the Privacy Commissioner being able to ask for a report, or even asking for a report and getting a report which is available appears to be a different thing these days. I'll say no more about that. Mr. Speaker, going now to the Identity Information Confirmation Bill, what this does is allows both public and private sector agencies to check identity information. It's my expectation that it will be used pretty extensively by a number of government agencies, but also eventually by banks and similar organisations. I think there will be a standardisation of the identity verification services. And it allows agencies to check whether the identity information presented by a customer is consistent with what is held by the Department of Internal Affairs through its registers, the Citizenship Register, the Passports Database, and the various registers of the Births, Deaths and Marriages Registry Office, although I think probably, Mr. Speaker, it would be unlikely that many people will want their identity information confirmed through the Deaths Register. I think if they're doing that, it might be an indication of an issue for the in a possible fraud. Although if it was like David Garrett. Well, I was going to get on to David Garrett, the ACT member. I understand a very close friend of a number of people opposite it, including the one with 3 names that I've forgotten, Jamie Lee Ross. I've got it. It is a very close friend of Jamie Lee Ross, Mr. Garrett, and I understand Mr. Garrett actually gave Mr. Lee Ross's mother advice on his name. You know, he got it off a headstone or 3. Mr. Speaker, and Mr. Speaker, I think that's the members opposite defended him for so long. The members opposite defended David Garrett for quite a long period of time, Mr. Speaker, and I just want to say that, and they seem to say it's not much of an issue. Not much of an issue, they said. This was a guy who stole the identity of a dead baby. He stole the identity of a dead baby, and the National Party members defended him. Now, I'm pleased that since that time they have confessed their sins. They have confessed their sins and said we've got to have a system which is better, and we will not allow that sort of thing to occur in the future, and they've been involved in this legislation. Weak as it was when it was introduced, but with the work of a number of people, it has got a lot stronger. And again, especially Mr. Archambault, I want to acknowledge the fact that he put a bit of backbone into the ministers. Mr. Archambault in particular was very clear, and he gave us examples of frauds in his own credit card. The member had been slightly loose with his details, and Mr. Speaker, they were being used on a basis which was absolutely inappropriate, and he shared that with us, and I think a number of us, most of us, many of us, have been involved in things which have looked dodgy. It is slightly harder to do now, although, Mr. Speaker, I am informed that every day in New Zealand there are about 2,000 cases of online or related identity fraud, credit card fraud, people using I suppose we're not allowed to talk too much. Oh, it's not before the court, is it? But there are questions about a member of Parliament and whether he used the cash card, in the appropriate way or not. And Mr. Speaker, if that is proven, then that would be a very serious matter. Mr. Speaker, but there are privacy breaches all over the place. In 2011, probably because of the lax leadership of Paula Bennett. I'm sorry, the Wainuiomata name. I've been in Wainuiomata too long this week. Paula Benefit is what she's known as over there. Paula Bennett's leadership led to a breach of privacy, a massive breach of privacy. She put a beneficiary's details into the public, and the WIN staff thought it was all right to do the same. And 10 of them were so bad last year that they had to get the sack. 10 people in 2011 from Winds followed Paula Bennett's leadership, and they got the sack when actually she should have.
I call Chris Hockenbowl.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I rise to speak on the cognate bills, the electronic